Hello everyone and welcome back to the Google Advertising and Measurement Developers channel. My name is Mattia Tommasone and I'm a Developer Relations Engineer on the Google Ads API team, but I am also the maintainer of the open source Google Ads MCP server project. Today, I want to show you how to move beyond hosting the MCP server on your machine and deploy it to the cloud. Specifically, we're going to deploy it to Google Cloud Run. First of all, if you are new to MCP, it's a protocol that allows you to expose the Google Ads API, or any other API actually, as a set of tools that a large language model, like Gemini CLI or any AI agent, can use directly. By hosting this on Cloud Run, your AI agents are going to be able to access your campaign data securely from anywhere, without you needing to keep a local terminal running, and you can potentially have different AI agents work with a single instance of your MCP server. Before we start, I'm assuming you already have your Google Ads API credentials ready. You will need your developer token and an OAuth client ID and client secret pair. If you don't have them, I'm going to leave a link to the guide in the video description right below so you can get those squared away first. We're going to pass these credentials as environment variables during deployment. Think of these as the information that the server uses to tell the Google Ads API that it's your application that is accessing the accounts. You will also need the gcloud command line interface installed on your machine to deploy the MCP server. I will also leave you a link to the installation guide in the video description right below. Finally, the last preparatory step that we need to take is to clone the GitHub repository of the MCP server to your local machine. Can you guess where you can find a link to it? Exactly, in the video description right below. The first step is to make sure that our gcloud command line interface is working on the right Google Cloud project, which is done with this command. With the gcloud project set, I set the active project to the Google Cloud project where I want to deploy my MCP server. All subsequent gcloud commands will work on this project. Then, we have to create an artifact repository that will hold the builds of our MCP server. It will store them as Docker images, and it will be located in the US Central 1 region. The command to do so then is this one. Now that we have created an artifact repository, we are going to push an image of our MCP server to it. Before we do so though, I want you to notice that the GitHub repository of the MCP server contains a Docker file, which is the file that describes how the Docker image is going to be created and executed. For instance, here you can see that we are instructing it to expose port 8080 to the connections from the outside, which is the port where your AI agents are going to be able to connect to the MCP server. Note that you don't need to have Docker installed on your machine, because the image will be built on the Google Cloud servers. To build our Docker image, this is the command that we're using. There is two important things to note here. One is the tag parameter, which includes the name of the artifact repository we just created and the tag we will be giving to our Docker image. And the other one is the tiny dot at the end, which is saying build the Docker image from the current directory. So from the directory where we cloned the GitHub repository of the MCP server. Okay, so we built a Docker image of our MCP server. We are now ready to deploy it to Cloud Run. We will actually need the URL where it will be deployed, so we will run the same command twice. One for an initial deployment, which will give us the URL, and another one to set that URL in an environment variable, which will then be used by the MCP server to handle user authentication. The command we're going to use is this one. As you can see, we're going to tell it which Docker image should be deployed, which is the one we just created, in which region the deployment is going to be located, and then set all the environment variables that configure the authentication for our MCP server, the project ID, the developer token, and the OAuth client ID and client secret. Once the command is completed, gcloud will tell us the URL that we can use to connect to our MCP server, and we will then run the same command again, this time setting the right value in the Google Ads MCP base URL environment variable. And that's it! Our MCP server is now deployed on Google Cloud Run. What's left for us to do now is to try everything out. To do so, I'm going to set the URL of the server in the settings.json file for my Gemini CLI. so that it will know that it has my MCP server available. Now, when I start Gemini CLI, I can use the /mcp list command to see the list of available MCP servers. And what I see is that the Google Ads MCP server is available, but I haven't authenticated to it. To do so, I'm going to use the /mcp auth command. Once I click the Allow button, the credentials for my user will be stored on my machine, and paired with the application credentials that we set in the environment variable for Google Cloud Run, will grant me access to the Google Ads accounts that my user can access. And that's it! You've just given your AI agents a permanent, secure bridge to the Google Ads API. No more local setups or manual data exports, just direct, tool-based access to your campaigns, all running on Google's scalable infrastructure. As I said before, I've left all relevant links in the description right below. If you run into any issues or have questions about the MCP server, join us on our Discord server or leave a comment, and in any case, follow our channel so that you can always be up to date with our news on the Google Ads API and on all other advertising and measurement APIs. Thanks for watching and happy automating!